And you know what? That has been your biggest handicap all this time.
Well, if my handicap was drawing 10 million people on a Monday Night Owl, I will take that handicap every single day, bro.
Are you done?
Russo'sBrand.com, where the pros are the pros. All right, what's next, Jeff?
What do you guys think WWE needs to do? Because, when Netflix gets the show, we've all seen it when we log into Netflix. They always put their programming first. It's the first thing you see. So Raw is going to be plastered when you sign into Netflix in front of millions and millions of people that probably are not currently familiar with the product. And the studies, it changes a lot, but people will decide something like within the first 30 seconds to a minute if they're going to keep watching a show, or they'll click off it and they move on. So if you guys were booking the first 30 seconds to a minute to keep this fresh new audience that Netflix has that may click on this show to see what it's about, what do you do? What do you think they need to do in that first minute?
Well, my opinion on that is not changed one bit. What they have to do is they've got to get the actual performers, the wrestlers, to not sell what they're selling right now, which is what they do. They have to get them to sell who they are and why they're doing it, and get it to where it is so tantamount to capture any kind of an audience that
So what?
Tantamount.
What is it? Oh, Tannenbaum, like the Christmas tree?
Oh my God.
What the hell? Jeff, don't shake your head. I know you've never heard of that word. Don't be doing this. Don't be doing this. I know you never heard of that word.
Very important.
Very important.
Tannenbaum.
Tantamount.
Go ahead, Al. Tannenbaum. Go ahead.
Anyway, it's very important that an audience be able to identify who these performers are and why they're in that ring as much as possible in as short amount of a time as possible. Otherwise, you'll lose them. You might capture them briefly for momentarily by, them seeing some amazing stunt or bump or something like that. You might keep them for a brief moment, and then they're going to go click and move on. They're just not going to, you're not going to retain them. The thought process of, and because somebody, used to say this all the time, make your window smaller so Jeff and I can just have a conversation. The thought process of, you made it bigger. The thought process of, flip through the channels and they're going to see two guys in the ring in a cage, or they're going to see two guys in the ring on a ladder. Yeah, they'll stop briefly out of curiosity, because we've proven that literally here on this show. People will watch this podcast to watch the ridiculousness of the videos. It's not going to retain an audience. It never does. Because if it did, then all of these deathmatch and backyard shows that we put on these videos would have enormous audiences. And at some point, one of these companies would be being entertained by Netflix to be on there instead of Raw. And it's not happening. GCW is never going to have a deal with Netflix. Let's face it. Well, I can't say never. I mean, because at this rate, who knows? But the likelihood is that's not going to happen, because there's not the audience base. And there's not the audience base. Why? Because that kind of stuff does not really garner a real, genuine, broad-based general audience. And what does, and again, this is just my opinion, and I'm trying to do it here in OVW, and clearly I have no clue what I'm doing because I ain't drawing money, but that is what I believe really draws an audience. And that's what professional wrestling has been based on, has been in the sell of who and why. And then other sports entertainment forms adopted that in their marketing and then went on to do it better than what professional wrestling does today.
Well, Jeff, you know exactly what did they do when the big season premiere of SmackDown? Who was the first one who came out the gate?
Right.
That's exactly what they're going to do. Get Hunter out there, bring Taker back. That's
night pop.
I know, Al, but that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do.
Great. But
I guarantee you
and maintain that.
Right. They don't know how.
They don't know how.
They don't.
It's not, you're talking they like WWE. It's not WWE that doesn't know how.
I know.
It's the talent that don't know how. Again, when the talent go to the ring, it is their job to do one thing. It is to garner an audience. It's not to wrestle.
I understand that, but who's got to school the talent on that?
I know
You educate your talent on that. Do you think when you come on here and say that on this show, do you think that's the instruction they're giving them down at NXT?
I think what they're being given is action.
Right.
Because they're right that without that action, the common person will be like, click, there's nothing that's engaging because they're not selling the why, the intent behind the action. They're just selling the action. And that's what's been lost.
You're now in charge. They say, Vince, 90 seconds. They can't change the channel.
I would do it, Al. I would do what Al did. We open up the show. Everybody's dead in the ring, bro. Everyone's dead in the ring. We don't know what happened, bro.
In all seriousness, I think you do have to do things like that. You've got to be willing.
You got to shock,
to experiment, and you've got to be willing to go outside of the typical wrestling format, like I did with that episode of OVW. But then you got to follow that up to Vince's point. You got to follow that up with a continuous and contiguous story that goes for those remaining 2 hours that play off of whatever it was that you initially came up with.
Jeff, if you're asking me,
and I think you know the answer, Vince, is like what you guys used to do with the Attitude Era when you came up on, sometimes you came up with a cold open, and it was literally Steve Austin, going and doing something that caught the audience's attention that then played out over the 2 hours.
Yeah.
Those two things have to be united. You have to have either you come up with a hot match that is going to captivate an audience as far as action and is going to sell the intent and is going to educate your audience right out of the gate. That's the psychology of a regular live event. Then or you sit there, and in addition, you then have to follow up with a story.
It ain't going to be. Listen, this is what it's going to be, Jeff. You're asking me. Okay, I'm the head writer of the WWE right now. First of all, Al, it ain't going to be a wrestling match because people know what wrestling is. So if you're not a fan of that, you're not watching a wrestling match. If you are a fan of it, you're already watching it. You're already watching. Jeff, what it needs to be is something totally out of the box that is not professional wrestling. Case in point, what I said they should have done all along. You got the groovy ghoulies now, okay, bro? You got the Wyatt Six now. I'm opening up the show to they live in some Saw-like torture apartment building where they're walking around like the freaks that they are. It's dark, it's dreary. What's going on? That's how I'm opening up the show.
And you know what? That has been your biggest handicap all this time.
Well, if my handicap was drawing 10 million people on a Monday night, Al, I will take that handicap every single day, bro.
Are you done? Because did the beginning of my sentence the middle of my sentence interrupt?
Yes, I will take that handicap because that's what we did.
Yes, you did.
The non-wrestling
opened up with wrestling, and you now discounting the fact that it's what you're selling is the reason that it don't sell no more.
You can't open with it. You've got to ease back into it. That's not how you're going to get the attention of people, Al. You're not going to get the attention of people that are not watching right now through wrestling. You got to get them in another way.
You can do both, but you can't discount the very thing you're selling and then expect to be able to sell it. You can't do that.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can. You got to reintroduce wrestling through the back door. Yes, you can, Al.
Hey,
yes,
listen,
you
I
can.
don't want to hear about you and your
I'm going wrong. I'm switching it on.
proclivities with your wife. I don't want any.
You got to reintroduce.
And
You got to.
your
If
word
you're a
is-
non-wrestling fan, you got to make them think they're seeing something else. That's
No,
what
you-
you got to do, and
No,
then
you
you get
don't.
and then you get them back.
No.
That's why people started watching wrestling again, Al. We didn't lead with
They started
wrestling. We
watching
led
wrestling
with
because all of the
entertainment.
wrestlers knew, one, how to sell the wrestling, and two, sell themselves. That's why people started watching wrestling again.
Al, I'm going to explain it to you in maybe a way you can understand. Let me use a different analogy.
Please talk down to me some more.
Okay, let me use a different analogy.
Be more condescending.
I do this show.
Yeah.
I do this show on my
And
podcast.
I'm the only one that argues with you. No one
I
else.
haven't done it in a while. I do this show on the podcast.
What commercial are you doing now for your podcast?
It's called That's Life.
Okay.
Okay, Al, let me tell you what That's Life is. Let me tell you what it is.
You haven't done that in years.
No, it's been less than years. Let me tell you what That's Life is.
What?
That's Life
Yeah.
is a Christian show.
Okay.
But guess what, Al?
What?
I don't beat them over the head with the Bible and God and Christianity. What I do, bro, is I talk about real life.
Right.
I bring them through the back door.
Again,
And I start talking about Christianity, God, and life in a way they can understand, where they don't feel like they're being. Let me finish. They don't feel like they're being beaten over the head with it.
Again,
now all of a sudden they're hooked because I'm talking about real life, and oh yeah, man, I go through that and I experience this and I experience that. Now I've got them listening to the show, compared to if I opened up with a Bible in front of me reading biblical passages, bro. Nobody's watching week 2. Just like if I open up a wrestling show with a 5-star wrestling match and I'm not a wrestling fan, I am not watching the show, bro. You got to bring me in through the back door. That's what you got to do. That's why the Attitude Era was so successful, bro. We opened the show with a blue collar worker and a boss that was looking to stick it up his ass every week. We didn't open, bro. We never opened up that show with a wrestling match ever, Al, ever.
Nuts. What is your deal today about anal sex?
We never opened up that show with a match ever.
Yeah, you did.
No, we didn't. We did not, Al. We never. No.
To a point where you didn't.
No, Al, we never did. Al, I'm reviewing the Attitude Era show now, week by week by week by week. We never opened up the show with a match. It was always the white collar boss sticking it up the blue collar worker's ass. That's what got him hooked into the show. Then you bring your wrestling in, Al.
Didn't I say that you do both, right? And I didn't say anything about opening up with a 5-star wrestling match. I said open up with guys with action where they know how to sell the intent. That's it. Are you done now? Can we go back to the video?